The following program is a PodcastOne.com production.
From Hollywood, California, by way of the Broken Skull Ranch, this is the Steve Austin Show.
Give me a hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
Now, here's Steve Austin.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Steve Austin Show. Yours truly sitting here in the studio. Actually, I'm in a different studio today. I'm in a different location here on the streets of Los Angeles, driving my 1995 Ford Bronco through traffic, almost late for my appointment to talk with my good buddy Jim Ross, who recently retired from 20 years with WWE. I can't believe it. It caught me off guard. I called my friend Jim up. I asked him if he'd be on the show. He said yes. I'm about to talk to him. Caught me by surprise. I was down in the dumps this morning when I woke up. I felt like I'd been eaten by a Tyrannosaurus Rex, and I'd been passed through his digestive tract and then deposited over the side of the Grand Canyon, landing with a thud at the bottom. That's how I felt this morning. But after a couple of gallons of coffee, I hauled my ass up, got my notes, got my Bronco, came down here to the studio. I'm fixing to light it up, talking with my buddy Jim Ross. But first, I got a special announcement for you that concerns the Steve Austin Show. As you guys know, I deliver a can of audio whoop-ass every single Tuesday and Thursday of every week. We're going to keep doing that. However, we're going to change things up a little bit. I've been getting tons of emails from people who would like to listen to the Steve Austin Show as a family unit. I've also got people who like all the crazy stuff that comes out of my brain because that's the way I think. So I want to make everyone happy. This show is therapeutic for me. Doing it makes me happy. The fact that you downloaded and listened to my audio whoop-ass makes me a happy person. This show is for the working man. I'm trying to entertain folks all over the world. With that being said, what I'm going to do is make a family-friendly edition of the Steve Austin Show available on Tuesday. You're going to get my exact opinions, my exact state of mind, my exact attitude that you've gotten in the past. I'll simply clean up a little bit of the language. Am I selling out? No, I'm just trying to expand my audience. I would love for people to be able to listen to the Tuesday's edition of the Steve Austin Show as a family unit. I don't know how many people I've had come up to me and say, man, I remember watching you on TV with my grandfather. It was the thing that families did. I'd like to make Tuesday that show. There will be a couple of little bit of language things in there, but it'll be PG rated. Moving on to the Thursday show. For all you working men that are just like me, who like a little salt and pepper on their language, in their dialogue, this show is going to be exactly what it was. No holds barred, Steve Austin, live and uncensored. Download, of course, but uncensored, uncut, no BS, telling it exactly the way it is. All I'm trying to do is make two sets of people happy. I'm happy doing it. I appreciate you people listening to this show. I know right now, because I do this show for the working man, there's a man driving down the road in a pickup truck. He's got a chainsaw in the back of that truck. He's fixing to go out and work 12 to 15 hours because he's got mouths to feed at the house. I got a man packing his bags because he's going to get in his big rig and deliver motor freight on the other side of the United States. That's right, the working man. There's another man driving around in a black and white patrol car fighting crime and keeping our streets safe. That's right. I've also got men and women in the United States Armed Forces going through training and maneuvers to protect this great country of ours. I got my working man Ted Fowler down there putting his carpenter tools in the back of his truck and going to build another house. Nothing's changed. This show is for the working man. Changing up the format. Tuesday family friendly. Thursday no holds barred. Steve Austin Show unleashed. All right, so here I am. I got my good buddy Jim Ross on the phone. First of all, Jim, how are you, man? Welcome to the show again. It's good to have you back.
Good, Steve. It's always great to talk to you.
Man, I have known you forever. Love you like a brother, an older brother, or sometimes a father. You've given me so much advice over the years. You loved all over the world, from calling matches in the business of professional wrestling. You're the guy who was the voice and helped the guys in the ring tell the stories. You were a guy who was so instrumental in helping talent get over. Myself, Undertaker, Triple H, The Rock, Bret the Hitman Hart, Shawn Michaels. I can go on and on and on. But all these guys look to you as being that guy. But recently you retired from announcing from WWE, and caught me a little bit by surprise, but it is what it is. You had a hell of a run, not only in the business, but in WWE. So with that being said, what you got coming up? What's the next step for Jim Ross?
Well, I'm not going to go out and buy a rocking chair because I don't figure I want to be sitting on the porch rocking and watching the world go by. I'd like to say that 61 is the new 41. So I'm feeling good. I'm healthy. I want to be doing some other things without question. So, I'm not going to go away. I'm just not going to be in WWE any longer. But, golly, Steve, as you well know, it's a big world out there. Maybe you give me a role in one of your movies and I can get shot early and just enjoy catering for a couple of days.
Man, I'm going to go film a movie, I think, in about a month. And there's going to be a lot of bodies hitting the floor, so to speak. So,
Hey, I can sell. Hey, you know that I can sell.
I know you can sell.
I could die a slow, painful death, or I can die suddenly. I can get stunned out of my shoes. I can take a bullet. I can gurgle. I can do any of that stuff, man.
Hey, but I know you did a role in the Man on the Moon, the story about Andy Kaufman with Jerry Lawler, Jim Carrey, and you enjoyed that experience, right? You seriously would like to do a little bit of acting, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I got a little acting bug in me. I'm thinking, I got a face for radio. I get that, but maybe.
Hell, I do too.
I might make a good villain, or I might be the old boy sitting on the end of the bar that gets the stray bullet. I don't know.
I think you're better than a stray bullet, kid.
Yeah.
Hey, man, let's talk about your run for a second. You accomplished so much, you influenced so many people. Is there one thing that you didn't get a chance to do? Any regrets?
Golly, Steve, I got to call your last match, and that was big for me personally and professionally. I think if I had to cast it down to, is there one thing left that you would love to do in WWE, it would be to call The Undertaker's last match. Whenever that is.
Is he going to have one more match?
I'm assuming so. And, I hadn't heard anything to the contrary. But if he has another match at WrestleMania, on my bucket list of things that I would love to do before, to bring everything full circle, it would be to be able to be a part of that broadcast.
Right.
Because I think that the streak is about as big a part of WrestleMania right now in today's marketplace as anything that they could book.
It is. No doubt it is. He's a legend. Man, he's had a hell of a run, too. And I used to always kid that guy about which one of us is going to last the longest. And, of course, he outlasted me. That old tough dinosaur, he is something else. He's had a great run.
They all, the people talk about Andre so much, and, you just forget how big he was. And, golly, I refereed some of his matches back in the day. But the point is that Andre's always been kind of like the legendary guy, and the Andre stories and all that. And they're great, and he'll never be replicated either. But I tell you what, man, when you're talking about long-term, long-haul, careers in WWE, Undertaker's got to be in that conversation with anybody. Anybody.
Absolutely.
So, he's just he's the bull of the woods, as Dusty Rhodes would say. And so, that's my that'd be the one thing I've done really. And if I could just be at that match, I might be happy. But I think that I've done everything else there that I really wanted to do. I really have. It's really been a cool run.
I want to ask you a question, because going back to your early days when you were in Mid-South, calling matches back then, and then over there in NWA, Carolina territory, Crockett's, wearing the headphones, and to what happened kind of towards the end of your career in WWE, your style changed a little bit. You started off, very, very good, but green. Then you matured. I thought some of the peak of your stuff was, that stuff in NWA when everybody was running roughshod. And then, when you WCW and then in WWE, But what was the transition like, or what was the start like back in the old days? Because the business has changed a lot. You guys are getting so much information in those headphones, and a lot of people don't know. You're getting signals. People are counting you down. Someone's yelling at you, say this, don't say that. When you started off with Watts, how was that process, and how did it evolve into the final process with WWE?
Well, it was clean. It was you and the audience and your partner, and whatever you saw on the monitor, you
called
described. It. And as the years have gone on, it's become more refined. There's more information that you got to disseminate. There's more voices in your ear. I remember one XFL game on NBC that I did where I had 4 people talking to me at exactly the same time. And they didn't know the way the truck was wired that the other was talking to me. But that was just an illustration of back. That was back in 2001 or something. It's gotten a lot busier. There's the third screen experience. There's Twitter. There's touts. There's promotional considerations. There's a litany of things. The website, the scrolls in the bottom of the screen. And my theory was, for me to survive and to move forward, I had to change with the times. And we went from me being a play-by-play guy to me being more of a storyteller. Like all other sports or other presentations that are live, like WWE is, or like ESPN, football, or NFL, the announcers have to do a lot more work to get through a broadcast and have to be better prepared and have to be, quite frankly, they got to be more talented.
Yeah, more talented in shoveling out information. But for me, there's a little bit of a disconnect. There's so much information going on. And I'm old school, probably like you, and you went through the process. You did it. But, man, when I was watching wrestling, I want to watch those cats wrestle, and then I want to hear you breaking down the action. That's all I want to hear and see. I don't want to know. I don't want to see a ticker tape. I don't want to know about the application. I just want to know about the wrestling match, who's on top, why, the mistakes so-and-so made, and that's what I liked about the simplicity of back in the old days. And I know it's not the old days, but that's just kind of, what I favor.
Hey, I'm the same way. That's like, I've read your tweets, and I know we talked about it. It's like the football coverage now, they'll cover the celebration as much as they will the touchdown. Yeah. And it's annoying to me.
Very.
I don't care. A guy's celebrating because he did his job. Getting paid a lot of money more often than not to do your job.
Man, I tell you what, it's almost why. Don't get me wrong. I love my football, college and pro, but I almost prefer college now just because the game is a little bit more pure. There's a little bit more sportsmanship involved. All that dancing and lollygagging around and that celebration. And to me, that doesn't speak to team. It's one guy wanting to draw attention to himself, and it really, really chaps my ass. But nonetheless, hey, man.
It's like a wrestling match where you're working with somebody and you don't want to sell nothing.
Yeah.
Because it's about you. So I'm going to no-sell everything he does. I want him to oversell everything I do. And it ends up being a lousy presentation.
Can you get that phone for me? I think I'm expecting a call.
Yeah, somebody saw it. Damn, for some reason, my phone has been ringing a lot this week. I don't know.
You're a free agent. You're in demand. People are trying to call you. People trying to get Jumpin' Jim Ross.
Yeah, well.
Get a piece of him. He's hot, folks. He's hot property, and he's available.
Well, they can send me Saturday morning in front of 85,000 people walking the sideline at the Oklahoma Sooner game. That's the biggest priority I got.
Hey, speaking of the Sooners, let's talk about a good buddy of yours, Kevin Sumlin, coach of Texas A&M. I know he used to coach there at Oklahoma. I got a chance to meet him. We all went out to dinner in Houston before WrestleMania 17. He's dealing with a young quarterback named Johnny Manziel. Johnny Manziel won the Heisman Trophy as a freshman for Texas A&M Aggies. He's a very talented cat. He's all over the place these days. He's seemingly or allegedly signing stuff. I guess he hasn't got paid for it. He got suspended for half a game. What's the story with this cat? Give me the 411. You're old school. You love the college program. You're real tight with Coach Stoops and all those cats. How's Kevin Sumlin dealing with this guy?
Well, Kevin is, as you said, a great friend of mine, and we've been our elbow more than once on a on a cold beer. But, Johnny Manziel wasn't the most recruited player in the Texas, and they weren't even sure he was going to play quarterback. They gave him a chance to play quarterback before they moved him to DB. They thought he'd be a defensive back or a wide receiver. But, he lit it up, and Kevin put him in an offense that fit Johnny Manziel to a T. But Kevin's inherited that issue, and I think Johnny Manziel's issues started long before he got to Texas A&M. I think and I hate to, I'm not Ward Cleaver here, Father of the Year, but, the thing about it is that he needed a trip to the woodshed. He needed my old man to be around him a little bit.
Mine too.
Growing up, because some of that stuff wouldn't have happened. It might have happened once, but it damn sure wouldn't have happened twice. And the kid's just immature, and he's been given everything that he's wanted materialistically. And, he's got to reel her back in and take some of that focus off himself and not put himself in a position to where it's all about him and not about those other dudes out there, those other 22 players or 21 players that start. It's a handful. And Kevin, I think, has done a lot better job than he's given credit for, considering the firestorm that Johnny Manziel had after he won the Heisman Trophy.
Man, Oklahoma Sooners, can they go undefeated this year?
I'd like to say yes. We have to get our quarterback situation solidified. The redshirt freshman kid, Trevor Knight from San Antonio, got the start at the beginning of the year, which kind of surprised a lot of folks. The Belldozer, we thought Blake Bell would be the starting quarterback. A lot of people did. It's a difference in comparing Big Ben Roethlisberger to Russell Wilson. That's what we have here. We're running that offense where there's a little bit of option, a lot more running game. And Trevor Knight was Russell Wilson elusive. I'm not going to say it was RG3, but because RG3 is in a different stratosphere. But he had a lot of speed. Ran a 4.5. The strongest freshman we ever signed. He was a quarterback, so he's strong as an ox. But he got his knee hurt. He's going to be out for a couple of weeks. So now they're back to the Belldozer. And that's where the Big Ben reference comes in. Blake Bell, 6'6", weighs 255, and big arm, cannon. So the offense now is going to change its personality yet again. We got a lot of work to do, and then Oklahoma goes up to Notre Dame, and I'm going to be at that game.
Yeah, you're going to have to get some payback on that.
As a football guy, to be able to go to a game at Notre Dame, to me, is special because it's just got so much history and heritage. And I'm big into history and heritage and things like that, tradition. So I'm looking forward to going up there to that game.
For over 25 years, BetOnline has been one of the most trusted names in online sports and casino gaming. And this year, it's all about soccer moments. As the world stops here, 48 nations and 104 matches, every one of them is a decision that is yours to make. BetOnline has all the live lines and player props on everything sportsbook and casino through the whole tournament. No limits. And when you are right, you get paid. No ceilings, no excuses. 26 is your year for the soccer championship. Bet on at BetOnline.
What if the stories of gods, angels, and ancient technology weren't myths, but memories of alien contact? On Ancient Aliens, we investigate the evidence, from mysterious ruins to strange celestial alignments, asking bold questions about humanity's origins. Could visitors from the stars have influenced our greatest civilizations? Journey into the unknown and challenge what you think you know about history in episodes like Secrets of the Sumerians, Mysteries of the Maya, or The Chosen. We are not alone. Download Ancient Aliens every Thursday, wherever you get your podcasts.
You said history and heritage. Let's talk history and heritage. Pro wrestling. You've been around for a long time. Let's talk about heels and heat. Hottest heel you ever saw in your life?
Oh, golly, that's a good one because, back in the 70s, there were legitimate riots because people were so angry at the wrestling villains that they left their chairs, they left their families, they pulled out their pocket knives, and they were going to do damage. They were serious about I'll go to jail, but I can't stand this atrocity.
Well, that's because pro wrestling was real back in and sports entertainment. Name me some heels or some heat.
Well, I can tell you that back in, I remember Dick Murdoch had a lot of heat
Yeah.
Killer Carl Cox had a lot of heat. You know, and to go into more modern times, or since quasi-modern times, when the Freebirds congregated in two different occasions, when they blinded the Junkyard Dog, and Watts made a huge story out of this deal. Junkyard Dog's daughter, who accepted his Hall of Fame induction for WWE,
I remember.
because she was just born. So the story on TV that we told was that, thanks to the Freebirds, the Junkyard Dog is unable to see his baby daughter, who just was born.
Oh, man, that's
He's
heat right
holding an
there.
infant in his arms, and he can't see her little face.
Oh, my, that is tremendous.
And so the Freebirds were as hated at that time because of that. People could relate to that.
Absolutely. And Dog was over. People loved JYD.
Yeah, but people also, Steve, could relate to the fact that your sight was taken from you unnecessarily, and then you had, after that occurred, your first child was born,
and
you
see it.
You couldn't even see this child. You couldn't. It was just just horrific. It was just unfathomable how that could happen. And now somebody's got to get even. The Freebirds have got to pay. So their three guys had a lot of heat, and it was organic, real heat. It was heat where they, even back they had to be leery of where they stopped along the road to get gas or where they stayed and things like that. It was a tough deal. But Murdoch had heat because he could talk, and his work was, you couldn't see through it. He beat people up, and he knew how to sell. He was great in that deal. But there were a lot of guys. There's so many guys that just were so skilled and so great an artist at what they did and being that wrestling villain. And here's the other thing about that. They were wrestling villains 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Gotcha.
They didn't sign autographs. They didn't want to engage a fan at the restaurant. They didn't want to talk to anybody. They were. It was like when I did, like you mentioned, the movie Man on the Moon. Jim Carrey played Andy Kaufman, and Jim Carrey stayed in character 24 hours a day to be Andy Kaufman, to the point that you were instructed when he walked on the set, you can't call him Mr. Carey, you can't call him Jim. He'd rather you just call him Andy or Mr. Kaufman, preferably Andy. So he was in character all the time in that role.
So did he have heat on the set because people were getting tired of that?
Yeah, he thought he knew how Andy Kaufman would react, and how Andy Kaufman was as a the intergender wrestling champion and being a obnoxious villain. And you talk to Lawler, and Lawler says Andy Kaufman was one of the most nicest, easygoing guys around, but he had that ability to flip the switch, and that's why he hated to be called a comedian. He said, "I'm not a comedian. I'm an artist."
He had heat in those old Memphis days. I watched a lot of tapes. I just got finished talking to Jerry Lawler on the show, and Andy Kaufman had a ton of heat there in that Mid-South Coliseum, and he loved it, and he relished in it. And there's been heels, throughout my career who were afraid of that heat. They were actually afraid of what was going to happen once they went to their car, got on the street, and you can't have that state of mind. You have to want to be hated.
Yeah, exactly. This Mid-South, Legends of Mid-South Wrestling DVD came out, and there's some illustrations on there of, how the boys will talk about, and I didn't know it until I got the business. I had to learn it, feel it. The silent heat.
Right.
That's scary.
It is, and sometimes it'll throw you off.
Yeah, and there's a lot of moments on that DVD that were badass, man. There were some heels. There was Buzz Sawyer had great heat in Mid-South.
He was scary. You believed him.
Yeah, he was a badass, and he lived that deal. He almost to an extreme.
Yes,
he died way too soon, but he lived on the edge. And then Watts was really smart about playing to his audience. Watts got buried by the giant Russian Korchenko and Eddie Gilbert and his crew on TV, and we did it in Tulsa. And sometimes people ask, well, why are all these bad things happening to people in their hometown? Because you get a better reaction. It's casting.
That's why you always had something happen to you every time we were in Norman on Monday Night Raw.
Oklahoma City was. I had a lot of gut-wrenching nights in Oklahoma City because the writers and the creative people knew that they would get the reaction they were looking for, and it would come across on TV as for what they were looking for. You and I were a prime example of that. You know, after WrestleMania 17, 2 days later, we were in Oklahoma City with a brand new Stone Cold, Mr. McMahon's buddy, and I got the high hell beat out of me in front of my home fans because they wanted to go on TV that Stone Cold's getting booed and Stone Cold's turning his back on us and blah blah blah. And he beat the hell out of poor old JR. God Almighty, he just beat him to death. Government mule beat him, just whipped his ass. That's what we're trying to do.
Yeah, but you know what? I was trying to get some heat, but turning heel was that was my idea, is what I wanted to do, and obviously it wasn't the right thing to do. It wasn't time. People didn't want to hate me. Like to your point, you've said in past conversations, I'd kind of achieved that John Wayne status. People don't want to hate John Wayne. And so, man, we were trying to do anything we could to get some heat. And I remember beating the hell out of you that night and had to ice my knuckles down afterwards.
Yeah.
And
I remember.
It was a bad idea, but we damn sure tried to make it work.
But we didn't know. Hey, look, at the time, we didn't know it was a bad idea.
I know. But when I look back, see, because I watched all this stuff, I watched match after match and listened to you call a bunch of stuff before we, are talking today. And like you said, when you listen to a lot of your stuff, you're thinking, why did I say this, or I should have said that, and you're hypercritical. I go back and watch some of my stuff, and I did the same exact thing. And on that WrestleMania turn, like I've said in past interviews, if I could have just gone back, I would have shook Vince's hand and said, watch the stunner. And I would have changed plans right there, had I been able to, really see ahead to what was to come. And I didn't, but turning heel just wasn't the thing to do, and that's just the way it was. Who's, in the territory days, what's the craziest damn thing you ever saw inside the squared circle?
I think the craziest thing I ever saw that I didn't believe until was Danny Hodge making a bear run in a battle royal.
Come on.
Yeah, Danny Hodge. They had a battle royal with a bear. So the bear was in a battle royal, and it came down to the bear and Danny Hodge and Bill Watts. And somehow or another, they'd worked it out to where Watts was going to win the battle royal and then get jumped by somebody.
And this is okay with the bear?
Well, the bear man had a gimmick. He was going to get the bear to leave the ring. I think the bear had an affinity for Pepsi-Cola or something, or something he smelled, so the bear was going to leave. But the bear was going to eliminate Hodge. Well, Hodge didn't want the bear to eliminate him. He was going to do it, but he's just going to have some fun first. So Hodge goes behind the bear, reaches around the bear's anus, and pulls out a handful of short hair around the bear's butt.
Let me cut you off real quickly. To my listeners who don't know who Danny Hodge is, he was a rangy fella. What, about 6'1", 205?
Yeah.
But he had the craziest grip strength in the history of the wrestling business, for sure, and probably of the world. He had the strongest grip known to man. And so then he pulls the short hairs from the anal region of the bear. Then what happened?
And then the bear bellowed through its muzzle and with a massive swat, hit Watts right in the side of the head and knocked Watts out of the ring, which eliminated him from the Battle Royal.
Oh, come on. Is that
Watts,
a shoot?
Yeah, and Watts got pissed off because that was going to be an angle for the town and to come back with whoever was going to do the run-in. Because the promos would have been, I went through a Battle Royal, I won the Battle Royal, I had to beat a bear, and then you take advantage of me, and now let's see how tough you're going to be this week, one-on-one, blah, blah, blah. Easy story.
Yeah.
And so the whole booking got tweaked a little bit there. But Hodge goes behind the bear and grabs a handful of short hair out of his anal region, and, I mean, the bear was in shock, and in shock and awe, as Toby Keith would say. And the bear wanted out. The bear got out of the ring. The bear got scared at that point. So Hodge, after the bear slapped Watts, and Watts couldn't keep from going out of the ring because this bear was,
Yeah.
So the bear eliminates the cowboy. Watts is eliminated. The bear leaves. Hodge is the winner with that little sly grin on his face, like, what I do. I didn't mean to do anything, mischievous. So I think that was probably the craziest thing that I personally ever saw. There's a story about somebody, and you may have heard this story, where it might have been in Memphis, but somewhere down south, they had an invisible wrestler, and a guy would wrestle by himself and take bumps and like he'd sell punches and things like that with nobody in the ring.
Yeah.
Because the wrestler had the ability to become invisible, and some people actually bought it.
Oh, come on.
It was hideous, absolutely hideous. We never would never try that because he's a tough guy philosophy. He wanted guys to be tough, and our stuff was good. Hey, the old school stuff between like Dr. Death and Big Bubba Rogers, a.k.a. Big Boss Man,
yeah,
or Terry Gordy and Doc, or
yeah,
or One Man Gang and Gordy,
yeah,
all that stuff's on that Mid-South DVD. It is badass stuff, brother.
I got to check that out. I've heard of that, but I hadn't checked it out. So you're saying the Invisible Man would not work on top of a WrestleMania card?
No, sir. I don't think so. I don't believe that will. I don't think that idea is ever going to get by the boss. I think as much as WWE is into entertainment, I don't think that they're going to ever take that step to where the Invisible Man is going to be booked at WrestleMania.
Now, the story about Watts the Bear and Danny Hodge, that was great. I thought it was funny. But I thought it was going to be the craziest thing ever, and it was. Give me the funniest thing you've ever seen inside the squared circle.
Well, back in the mid-'70s, I was doing a 2-camera shoot for McGurk's Territory. It was a makeshift TV studio at the fairgrounds in Tulsa, and there was a guy. He was a carpenter. A carpenter was a wrestler that would help build guys, and
right.
they would lose to. Usually a carpenter. It didn't have to be a babyfacer, but this guy was a heel. So he was a pretty good heel. His name was Bob Cook. Now, it wasn't the Bob Cook that we knew later. It was a different Bob Cook.
Right.
I don't even know if that was his real name, to be honest with you. This was in about mid-'70s. He wore really bright yellow tights. The tights almost got him heat.
Right.
And he was a Tennessee-trained guy and, all pretty sound, fun, great storyteller, kind of a, he knew how to tell a story, like Lawler, Dutch Mantell, Bill Dundee, all those guys. They could tell a great story. And my broadcast partner was Leroy McGurk, who was the owner of the territory. And of course, I told the story about Leroy. He was blind. So my first color broadcast partner, commentary partner, was a blind man, which kind of affected my style in the early going of being descriptive and so forth. Well, Bob Cook takes a big backdrop and takes a great big old dump in his yellow tights. And there ain't no there's no way of editing. We're live to tape.
Yeah.
we got a little old room, maybe 100 people in there. And, of course, it just smelled like exactly what it was.
Right, smell bad.
It smelled bad, buddy.
Yeah.
And Leroy now is blind. Well, the thing about a blind person is they have keen senses of smell.
Yes.
So Leroy now is on TV trying to figure out what that smell is.
But stop. How could Leroy call a match if he can't see?
He listened to me. I'd say, well,
oh,
Bob Cook's 6'3", 265, a really rough guy, Leroy. He's got a bad attitude. Yeah, we've heard a lot of things about this guy. He was he didn't come here with a good reputation, but we know that he's tough. But, Bob, it fill in the blanks.
I got you. That sounds good. Okay, so anyway, a big dump has been taken in the yellow trunks.
Yeah, and so now the people are starting to murmur, and they're starting to laugh.
Murmur.
Murmur. It's like the talk amongst yourselves on Blazing Saddles.
I dig it.
They're murmuring, and so Leroy, I'm trying to keep a straight face, and I'm seeing this guy is taking a great big crap in his britches, in his tights, and so I'm trying to be the straight man here and not laugh. People are laughing. Some are getting sick. Some are gagging.
What was his reaction?
In there, he'd have thrown up in a bucket. So now the smell permeates over to Leroy, and now Leroy is totally confused. His sense of smell has overtaken his memory that he's on television. And so then Leroy's commentary, obviously, we had to do, the first time I ever went in the studio and did a voiceover, was voicing over that match by myself, because we didn't have it on camera. So I said, well, Leroy's stepped away for a few minutes. He'll be rejoining us later. And I had to go in the studio, never forget it, down at Channel 2 in Tulsa, and revoice that match because Leroy said, "For God's sakes, it smells like in here. And we're on TV, Leroy. Come on." So I think that was probably the funniest thing I ever saw because watching the audience was absolutely hysterical because they're pointing at this guy. And the thing about it is that the longer, instead of them going home and finishing the match, they thought they had to get their time in.
Yeah, of course.
And so the blot and the brown blot in his yellow tights became bigger and bigger. It ended up looking like a tasty cake.
Yeah,
it was huge. And then, of course, when the match was over and Leroy found out what actually happened, he was furious and.
Furious. I mean, it's not like the guy could help himself. How did old Bob Cook maintain his workmanship and composure in the ring?
He got into a overhand wrist lock and was on his back a lot, and he was selling. Or he got put in a headlock, and he's on his back a lot. He got horizontal quick and on his back even quicker because he didn't want to expose that backside of his situation. So, but it was hilarious. The audience was laughing, and here's what Leroy couldn't figure out. Bob Cook is stomping the hell out of the babyface and beating him up, and I'm calling it with a sense of urgency. And the audience is laughing. So that was a huge disconnect for the blind man.
Yeah.
The heat is there. Why are they laughing at my hero getting beat up? I was on the air. We're live to tape. I couldn't stop and say. I couldn't push we didn't have headsets. We weren't hooked to the truck. It was just us and a stick mic.
Right.
So I didn't have any communication to go to talk to the truck. I didn't have a talk-back button. So we're just out there on an island to ourselves, and we got through it, and, we moved on. But it was that created a guy taking a dump in yellow tights was the first time that I ever had to go do a voiceover to redo a match because even if it sucked, even if I sucked, even the match was horrible, you let it lay. It aired.
Give me another crazy moment that happened in the ring, that whether it was funny, crazy, heat, just another extraordinary moment in the ring.
We were in Wichita Falls, Texas one time at the 4-H Club Center. We played there every Thursday, and I remember refereeing there, and we had that was a $40 club. That was my max, $40. That's why you always had guys ride with you so they paid transfer and help you out on your expenses because I knew I was going to make $40 and that was going to be it. So we have a main event one night. Danny Hodge, two-time Olympian, never lost in college, 3 national championships, Golden Gloves boxing champion, only man to ever do that, first wrestler on the cover of Sports Illustrated, blah, 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 breaks pliers with his hands, apples, whatever. There's a guy that's a big Air Force guy. He was like a sergeant-type guy at the Air Force base there in Wichita Falls, sitting on the front row. And Hodge getting ready to wrestle a guy named Bob Sweetan, Bruiser Bob Sweetan.
Yeah.
Main event, 2 out of 3 falls, and I was your referee. Well, before the match started, this guy stands up and basically starts being a heckler to Hodge, which was unheard of because he was beloved. He was always a baby face. And little did this guy know that he's talking to an animal. So the guy said, "You're fake and you're old, and this Sweetan's going to beat your ass tonight, blah, blah, blah." Long story short, Hodge invites him into the ring.
Oh, no.
So all Hodge was going to do was shake hands with the guy. Now, when he shook your hand, if he wanted to break it, he could do that.
Yeah.
With a handshake. He shook hands with the guy, and the guy was a left-handed fella. Hodge was right-handed handshake. He shook hands. He started squeezing. The guy got into, went into kind of a little shock, and his left hand, he slapped Hodge right in the face. Bad move. So now Hodge goes behind the guy, and some fans aren't going to know what this is, but he got him in a chicken wing. So he got him in a hammerlock position, and then with his left hand, he went in front of the guy's face with his right arm, and then Hodge locked his hands and chicken winged the guy. And he picked him up, and he drilled him into the mat, almost like he'd stick a post in the ground. And the guy opened nasty-ass canvas, and the guy's ear got all mangled and started bleeding. But what was even worse was the Hodge kept him in that deal, in that hold for a few seconds, and the guy was passing out. But I noticed that he was wearing khaki pants, and he had just urinated all over himself. And so that was how the business was done back in those days. And now there'd be a lawsuit. It'd make, TMZ would be talking about it. The guy get a lawyer, he'd sue. But Hodge ripped the guy's arm. His shoulder was destroyed. Probably rotator cuff, I'm guessing. Just tore it all to hell. Plus, the guy was embarrassed because he had urinated himself in his khaki britches. And Steve, he went back to his seat and took his seat back on the front row, and he became the biggest Danny Hodge fan that you ever saw in your life. And he was doing he couldn't move his arm to put his hand up, so he was clapping his hands like he was, had a stroke.
Yeah.
He couldn't move that one arm because it was ripped. But that was the legend of Danny Hodge. And this guy was a lot bigger than Hodge. This guy was probably 260. And well put together, not just a tub of goo.
Right.
But Hodge, he slapped Hodge in the face, and it was the quickest thing I'd ever seen in my life. It was behind, chicken wing, slam, takedown, ear ripped, and he gripped, and Hodge had that look in his face like, my God, I didn't know what to do. I had never been involved in that situation before, and I kept tapping on his shoulder, and like, hey, it's over, he'd give up or whatever. Finally, Danny come to his grips, and he let go of the guy, and here we are. So we rolled him out of the ring, and he goes back to his seat, and the cops came, and Hodge said, let him sit there.
Well, it kind of speaks to the guy. Seems like a pretty tough little cat to get his shoulder ripped up, his ear mangled, go one-on-one with Danny Hodge. Danny Hodge had the vice grip on his other hand, and then he just goes, sits down, and tries to clap with one hand. So, a normal person probably would have, either took an ambulance ride or went home at least.
Oh, yeah. A normal person would have gone to the hospital.
He was a hell of a wrestling fan.
Yeah, he was. He became a big Danny Hodge fan, and he was a hell of a wrestling fan. He's one of those kind of guys, Steve, those old rednecks that we know where they wear a short sleeve shirt and then they turn the cuff up sleeve up about two cuffs. You know what I mean?
Yeah, try to show that bicep a little bit.
Yeah, show their guns a little.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I came back to haunt him. Back in the day, that first time when I've talked about this on the show several times with different people, but I never got your 411 on it. Where were you when Dr. D. David Schultz slapped John Stossel when he came back here and was trying to kind of expose the business? And what were your thoughts on this? Because back then the business was protected. It was real.
Yeah. I was working for Cowboy. I was working for Bill Watts.
What was your thoughts?
I liked it because that's how I was raised.
Right.
That's how I was indoctrinated. That's why the baby faces in any town always stayed in one hotel and the heels stayed in another, and there was no same hotel.
No mingling, no break kayfabe.
Clubs, same way. Restaurants, same way. If you went into a truck stop or a restaurant to eat and you saw your opponent or somebody from a heel and you're a babyface, you turn around and left. First guy there got to eat there. So that always happened. Same story I told you about Bill. If you're in his territory and you lost a fight to a civilian, you were fired. So Bill cheered that, what David Schultz did.
Right.
Because David Schultz was built out of that same cloth and that same mold where if you were a heel and a guy comes up to you in a convenience store, you're buying your six-pack of beer for the drive to the next town, and the guy said, well, that was a great show tonight. Really enjoyed that show you guys put on. That was fighting words.
Provocation.
That was like, show. You mean show you a show?
Right.
How about this? Bam, bam, whatever. It was bullyism at its best, but they were always in character. So I thought because how I was raised and the exposure that got, that was probably going to be good for business. So I didn't have any issues with it. I sure as hell wouldn't want to have been John Stossel.
No.
But I was so brainwashed and so old school stuff embedded in me at that time, especially for the guy that I worked for, who was multi-old school.
Right.
He was the kind of guy, Steve, that would, after the TV tapings in Shreveport, if you wanted to try out to be a wrestler, he would clear the arena and everybody would be gone, and he'd keep a handful of guys back, and then he said, I'll work out with you after the show's over. And I remember one time we had a kid in there that was a big African-American kid, big, good-looking kid. I thought, boy, this guy might be something. So Bill said, I'm going to work out with him myself. You can't beat me. You can't beat any of my guys because I'm old. I'm retired. He said, but before you do, I want you to make sure that you're loosened up and you're warm. So you're going to work out with Doc, Steve Williams. And that was like sending somebody to the electric chair. There's no
what
return
happened?
from that. But I want you to be sure. I want to be fair to you, so you're loose, so I don't take advantage of you. So Doc goes in there and just wears them out, up and down, waist lock, throwing down, and cross-faced at our face, and, just forearms, and just ripping and tearing, and he loved it. He loved it.
Yeah.
He was really Dr. Death at that point.
Yeah.
And then Bill would say, "Okay, Doc, that's enough. All right, kid, you ready for the old man now?" So Bill would go in there and just put the boots to him. And then the guy would, with his tail between his legs, would. I remember Grizzly Smith, Jake Roberts' father. He was the road agent, and he was there watching it. We were all there at TV. It's after TV. This guy acted like he passed out. He didn't want no more. And so they said, "Should we call a doctor?" So I remember Grizz and Bill standing over this guy, and they're saying, or Bill said to Grizz, "First thing they're going to do is they're going to undress him, and they're going to put a catheter in his penis." And this guy's eyes is like they were silver dollars. They opened up big, like he'd heard the magic word. And he got up, and he was healed. It was like he had a Pentecostal evangelist lay hands on him. He was healed immediately, and he was apologetic for wanting to be in the business. And I'll always be a big fan, and I know I'm not cut out for it. But when he heard the catheter in the penis line, he came conscious, and so it was. But that was the era. That was the David Schultz thing. Same basic deal. There's tapes out there on YouTube of where Eddie Graham would take guys like Bob Roop and Hiro Matsuda and Jack Briscoe, and they'd try out guys in Tampa. And it was like going into, like the scene in the basement of that pawn shop in Pulp Fiction.
Yeah.
It was graphic, is my point. Graphic violence.
Right.
Not graphic sex, but graphic violence.
Yeah.
So that was the era, man.
When I had my last match at WrestleMania 19 against The Rock, and you were there, and did a hellacious job calling that match. A lot of emotions involved. No one really knew I was riding off in the sunset other than a couple of us. But when Rock beat me, 1, 2, 3, right in the middle of the ring, I knew that was it for me. And it felt like a big weight was lifted off my shoulders. Man, I was running too hard, and it was time to get out. And so I was going to retire, and it took me 3 years to get that out of my system. But at the time, it felt like a tremendous weight was lifted off my shoulders. When you retired, did you feel the relief that I did, just of maybe that you were free, so to speak?
Yeah, absolutely. I can't look back starting in 1993 and having a 20-year run in a high-profile, a pressure cooker-like environment and not say it wasn't a great run. But I always had a varied interest. And, a lot of people, they're aware of JR, good old JR, black hat, sitting in the ringside, broadcast, did a play-by-play. But, I had other interests. I had interest in acquiring talent, in mentoring talent, negotiating contracts, writing. I've always done blogs, and the Twitter thing now is a big deal. I helped write your book. And I wrote a couple of, that and another, the cookbooks are, 2 New York Times bestsellers.
You going to write a book now, autobiography?
I'm thinking those offers are starting to mount up.
That's a no-brainer.
Yeah, I got to do it. I'd love to be able to get in the booth and call a football game somewhere before it's all said and done.
Now you're talking about the college level for Oklahoma?
That would be cool because I live here. It's like talking to one of the boys. There's very little trance involved. So, and I'm a big fan of UFC. Don't know what I could do to help them, but I'd be interested in having a conversation with Dana White anytime he wanted to have one. And
Jim Ross in the UFC and Dana White. Boy, I tell you what, that would be pretty damn special. I got to jump on that.
I think he's a hell of a guy, and he's a lot like Vince. He's a go-getter.
Absolutely. I've met him a couple times. He hooked me up with some tickets. Straight up cat, tells you exactly what's on his mind. I like the way he does business. All the fighters that I've talked to say he's a man's man and sticks by his word. So that would definitely be an interesting endeavor for you. I'd like to see what come out of that.
Absolutely.
Well, you can follow Jim Ross at JR's Barbecue on Twitter. He is available for booking. I want to book you right now myself. You and me have been talking. I've owned the Broken Skull Ranch for going on 8 years now. I've been inviting you down ever since I bought it. I've been to your place several times in Norman. You and Jan have always taken great care of me. But I'm inviting you down this year for deer season. You don't have to shoot anything. Sit in a deer stand with me or by yourself, whatever. But I know that you don't have to be at a Monday Night Raw, so
Nope.
I'm inviting you right here on the Steve Austin Show to please come down this season.
I'm in. I know I'm not going to – here's the deal. I know I'm not going to drive.
That's right.
I did the 700-mile round trip when I went hog hunting with Shawn Michaels, and I had a blast. But I realized that 700 miles is just – that's a long haul. And I'm too old and I'm too spoiled. Even in an Escalade, I thought I was roughing it.
You know, I still drive that distance back and forth. It's 1,500 miles from Los Angeles to Tilden. I know. I just love driving, but I'll always put 1,000 miles in that first day. And it's an ass whipper, man. And, it's a lot of work to drive. And, hey, the show goes out to the working man. There's a guy in an 18-wheeler driving across the United States of America, and we're entertaining him. But it's work. But flying to San Antonio, I'll come down in my supercharged black Suburban, pick you up. We'll go down to the ranch, hang out, and I'll drop you back off.
We got to stop at that Mexican place there and eat.
We got to eat Mexican food. I got a good place, and we will do it up.
All right, buddy, you're in. I'm all for it. I even have a Texas hunting license.
Oh, yeah. Hey, real quickly, how was the extravaganza with Shawn Michaels? He's kicking ass on McMillan River Adventures outdoor show with him and Keith Mark. I love the show, and that guy is happy as a clam. I'm so happy for Shawn Michaels because, and I know, guys that get out of this business sometimes have a hard time getting down the road to the next gig. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And Shawn has fell in love with hunting for about 5 or 6 years ago and has been tremendously successful. They're a highly rated show on the Outdoor Channel, so I'm just so proud of that guy and so happy that he's so at peace with his life.
He is the most fun guy, him and Keith, to hunt with and to be around that I could ever imagine. I had the best time. I shot around with a crossbow with a scope just to see how it would work. And then my second shot ever, we killed close to a 400-pound feral hog. And so I got a pretty good track record now, Steve. And, I shoot a gun and I shoot a crossbow left-handed because my dad was a left-handed dude, and he taught me how to shoot a gun. I shoot a pistol with my right hand. I shoot a rifle with my left hand. I'm a dangerous human being. I may be the world's most dangerous hunter. I'm not sure. I don't want that to get out there now, but I might be when all's said and done. But I would love to come down to your place and, as they say, harvest a buck or not. We would have a hell of a time.
Jim Ross, freshly retired from WWE. He might write an autobiography. He's going to be on the road. He's talking about taking his one-man show on the road. He's got a lot of things coming at him. The greatest announcer in the history of the business, in my opinion. Obviously, I want you to come back on the show. This just happened. I wanted to have you on so we could sit there and chat and not get specific, and we didn't. We both love the WWE. We both love the business.
Absolutely. Hey, I had for a wrestling fan, to waddle his ass into the business like I did and to work 39 years in it was a true blessing. I mean, wrestlers don't have 39-year careers. I got into a role that I could sit there for all those years and do my thing, and I wouldn't change a darn thing. It's been great. And,
man, I tell you what, I know I'm going to talk to you in a couple of days, but for all my fans around the world, listen to the Steve Austin Show, man, it was a pleasure for me to watch you call matches all from Mid-South into NWA, WCW, WWE, and, of course, during the heyday of my run in WWF, and, a guy who recruited me to WCW, recruited me to WWF, and then it turned to E, and to be the guy that knew how to heap praise on the character that was Stone Cold. And I owe a big part of my success to the way you laid it down for me and have always been there for me as a friend and my neck surgeon and all that. So anyway, glad you got a weight off your chest. One of my closest friends. Thank you for coming on the show.
Okay, buddy. Anytime. Everything's good. It's all good in Oklahoma, and I'll just say one thing, Boomer Sooner.
Boomer Sooner and Steve Austin. I'm going to come back and wrap up this extravaganza. Talking with my buddy Jim Ross. We're going to bring it on down home in a minute. All right, everybody, Steve Austin Show. As you know, before I wrap this thing up and go home, as we would say in the wrestling business, sayonara. See you down the road. Ride off into the sunset. Remember, folks, you can follow me on Twitter at Steve Austin BSR. You can also check out my website, BrokenSkullRanch.com. And before I take care of all the business, I want to throw out a little bit of Amazon love out there. And thank you, people, for supporting the show, because when you go to PodcastOne.com and click on the Steve Austin Show and then click on that Amazon banner, it kicks back a small percentage of the sales to keep me up and running. You can also take a shortcut by going to SteveAustinShow.com, clicking on that Amazon banner. It does the same thing. I ain't telling you to buy nothing, but if you do, it helps keep the show on the air for free. Amazon love, I appreciate you supporting the show. I enjoyed talking to my buddy Jim Ross. Great stories as always. Bob Cook in the yellow trunks, messing his pants. I've been there and I did it. I didn't do it to the degree that he did, and I wasn't wearing yellow trunks. That was a great story. It's also good to hear the story about my old buddy Danny Hodge. And to help you guys understand who that guy was, he was just, he wasn't old back then, but he was about 6'1", 205, just like we said. And for some reason, Danny Hodge had vice grips for hands. Everybody in the history of the business knows that Danny Hodge has the strongest hands attached to any human being that has ever walked the face of the earth. For him to throttle a guy who came into the ring, puts a smile on my face. But then again, I'm from the professional wrestling world. It's a weird world. It's a world you loved, or you wouldn't be listening to this show. I got all kinds of good stuff coming up for you, folks. I'm going to change a few things around in the show, just like I said. Tuesday show family friendly. Thursdays on the edge, unleashed. But I'm also going to be incorporating some new ideas I have to further guarantee that every time you download the SAS, you have just downloaded a big-ass can of audio whoop-ass. That's all I got to say about that. I'm Steve Austin, and I'll catch your ass down the road.
Hello, and welcome to Pluto Phone. If you know the name of the movie you'd like to see, just stream it for free on Pluto TV, where all your blockbuster favorites are landing all summer long. Catch Anchorman, The Legend of Ron Burgundy.
Fantastic.
The Matrix Trilogy.
Welcome to the real world.
Mean Girls.
Shut up.
Titanic.
I'm the king of the world.
And so much more. For showtimes, press nothing. They're free 24/7.
That is so fetch.
On Pluto TV. Stream now, pay never.